And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, I just wanted to talk some Pokemon, and I'm going to let the chat kind of leave this live tonight. But there's some news that did get released relatively recently. So yesterday, CGC did release their new pricing structure, and I guess in today's video, I'll start it off before we get to whatever questions the chat has. Let me know down in the live chat, but yeah, I guess we'll start it off talking about CGC and their new grading. So, if you guys didn't know, CGC now has new pricing for like bulk, and that's all we're really going to talk about in today's video is the price of bulk. So, like the free tier is $12, so they went from 15 to 12, and then there's like an associate level, you could pay $10.80, or the elite level, which are the membership tiers, and the elite's pretty expensive a year, and that's all the way down to like $9.60 a card. And it just brings up, like, what do I think about CGC? Listen, I'm telling you right now, I already made that video. I've made enough videos at this point. You guys all know how I feel about CGC. If CGC was a horse, it's time to take it out back, give it the old Yeller treatment, and then just send it to the glue factory. I know a lot of people are CGC fans. They don't want to hear that. Listen, the days of CGC are done. And I've been on this channel a lot of times, a lot of other grading card companies, and I've always talked that I think competition's really good for grading. And we saw what the positive aspects of CGC were when you look at like PSA. PSA started to recognize a lot of cards and started to, you know, like recognize different variants of cards and all these like little things, which was great. And I think a lot of it had to do with the competition. But I'm not a fan of those new CGC labels. I don't really understand the people that are. You know, sure, CGC made a lot of those videos where they were showing these Pokemon influencers and getting their reactions of these slabs. Listen, let's call it what it is. The card that they showed those influencers were Illustrator Pikachus. If you handed me a Illustrator Pikachu, and I don't care what slab that Illustrator Pikachu is in. You could have handed me that Illustrator Pikachu in a freaking turd sandwich. If you handed me an Illustrator Pikachu, I would have looked at it and been like, wow. So, you know, in all those videos, yeah, they handed these influencers Illustrator Pikachus. Of course they were going to be like in shock and amazement. It's not really fair, right? But whatever. I'll give them that credit. At least their PR department was smart enough to know we can't put just a meaningless card in those slabs and hand it to these influencers. We got to put the top of the mountain in Illustrator Pikachu. But whatever. But you know, there's a lot of people who are talking about like that 9.5 play. And what do I mean by that 9.5 play? If you guys don't know, is if you have an old 9.5 in one of the blue labels, you can resubmit it to CGC, and for a $5 reholdering fee, they'll bump that 9.5 up to a 10. So you had a lot of people out there buying up eBay, buying up all these 9.5s, and not only were they buying up like the really, really high-end 9.5s, you know, they were picking up a lot of what I would call like middle-of-the-road 9.5s. And an example of a middle-of-the-road 9.5 is Dan Ketchum Collectibles made a great video and talked about this, like the Charizard from Celebrations. That card in a 9.5 sells for drastically less than a 10. But the problem is even after you purchase that card, pay to have it shipped to CGC, pay the $5 reholdering fee, then pay the shipping back to you, and then all the time and money to list it on eBay. Listen, for everybody out, and it's a little too early for this, but for everybody out there, in my opinion, there will still not be premiums to CGC 10s. If anything, I think they've devalued their 10s so badly that nobody's really going to want to agree with CGC. I mean this. I know I'm a CGC hater, but people are not going to want CGC 10s at this point. And one of the big arguments everybody had for CGC was everybody said CGC's a harsher grader. CGC, you know, doesn't just give out 10s. Guess what? They give out 10s now, because they used to just give out 9.5s. So if it's the same grading scales, they give out 10s. They're not a harsh grader anymore. And one of the things about PSA, when you hear people, when you start to get deep enough down the rabbit hole, you'll hear about people talk about PSA, and they talk about it in timelines of cert numbers. A lot of people like to mention like the real early certs, like the 001s, the ones you like never ever see, or the 2 certs. The 2 cert is quote unquote famous for having like week 10s. A lot of people like to throw that word around, week 10s. And that was like the battle cry for a lot of these CGC creators. Listen, there's going to be a lot of weak CGC 10s that exist on the market, and I just do not see them holding a premium, especially compared to PSA, especially against a Beckett 10 or a Beckett Black Label. Forget about it. The days of CGC are over, and all those people doing those like lower plays, those Charizard from celebrations and stuff, paying 9.5 prices, because it's not like 9.5 prices stayed stagnant this whole time. After there was a buyout of these celebration Charizards in 9.5, the prices kept going up, and I watched as people were buying those cards as the prices started to go up because people were trying to do that play. The margin that's left when that play is all said and done might be in the negative. I'm sorry, it just might be in the negative. And I feel really bad for a lot of those people doing that. And I have a lot of friends out there that are doing that, people I like in this hobby, and I wish them the best of luck. But I think they're going to find that it was one of the poor decisions they have made. Because I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of weak 9.5s. And this is a crazy thing. Because CGC has changed their grading scales, there was a while that there was a lot of really strong 9.5s. Should have been 10s. A lot of 9s should have been 10s. A lot of 8.5 should have been 10s. But in the last couple months, CGC had drastically changed their grading scales. And I saw a lot of 9.5s coming in, and they were weak as fuck. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the market is ever able to accept these new labels, accept this new grading scale. I don't see it. And the reason why I don't see it is because I think there are just too many people out there that grade cards for that second person. The second person meaning that greater fool theory to sell that card to somebody else. And if they start to grade all these cards and the margins are just not there for them, and they're losing, submission after submission, and they look at what PSA 10s are selling for versus what their CGC 10s are selling for, they're just not going to understand it. They're going to be super upset, and eventually people will just leave CGC. Now, CGC lowering prices in the near term, I think that's a great play for them. Like, from a non-biased point of view, like, good for them. They should have lowered their price, though, months ago. The second that PSA lowered their price to $15 a card, CGC that day should have recognized, their corner of the market and instantly dropped prices. They never should have been at the same price as PSA. And if you don't believe me, you could look at the gem rates. The gem rate Instagram account, they show last month CGC graded like 53,000 cards. PSA graded 999,000 cards. Like, it's very clear where the market's going. And out of those 999,000 cards, like, greater than 400,000 of those were just Pokemon cards or TCG. So you can't even say, oh, well, PSA also is big into sports and stuff. It's like, no. But we'll see. I don't see it playing out. I think everybody I think for a very short amount of time, like when we watch next month's numbers and we see how many cards were graded at PSA in the month of July, I bet it's an insane amount of numbers between crossovers from 9.5s to 10s and then all the people that are going to mass submit at these lower dollar amounts for grading. Yeah, I mean, I could see where if you're submitting a card at $9.60, there are probably enough cards out there that the price difference between a CGC 10 and a PSA 10 won't be that drastic, where by saving yourself $5.40 if you have that elite membership is probably worth it. But then there are a lot of the cards where sending 15 to PSA versus 12 to CGC. And then, yeah, there's, like the just first to market play where CGC you're going to get your cards back faster. I'm very curious to see what happens because right now that is the battle cry for CGC for grading with them is faster turnaround times, especially if you want to be first to market for a lot of call them modern plays. And everybody out there knows this by this point. The best course of action for a modern card is most of the time first to market. There are very few examples of cards that go up crazy, like while product is still in distribution, and like cards really haven't like got old enough to be out of rotation, no longer available at distribution. That's the normal timeline that cards start to go up. It's very rare that cards start to go up with like a ton of supply. So with that mindset, it's always those first cards to be graded are the best plays. And then the only reason why I say there's an exception, you do have cards like Moonbryons, and you see what the Garantina V is doing. Like those are starting to still tick up in price even after the fact, but those cards are the exception. They're not the rule. But yeah, with CGC's turnaround times, and then we'll see what happens, because I don't know, like, compartmentalized, if them grading all these like reholders and all these new submissions on top of the new slab, on top of the price change. I don't know if all these are going to now cause their turnaround time to go from a week to a month to 2 months. I'm not sure. I just don't know if there's going to be enough demand to even like really affect that. But we'll see. I mean, I think anybody who submits cards to CGC in the near term will be very upset with themselves in a year from now. And especially if people are submitting with the intention of, are you going to get that submission and the very second you get that, list it on eBay? If there's anybody out there who are going to be sitting on their hands, not planning to submit anything right away, they're done for. I mean, there's going to be some bad plays that happen right now. And, I'm looking at PSA right now. PSA is doing this real weird thing where PSA's turnaround time seem to have increased. And I don't know what that has to do. Shout out to Mile High Pokemon. If Mile High Pokemon is watching this, his most recent comment on my last video, he mentioned that he sent his cards to California. Then they shipped their cards shipped his cards to New Jersey for those cards to be graded in Jersey, and then they were shipped back to him. And obviously, it's in the name Mile High Pokemon, so he's in Colorado. So it went from Colorado to California to New Jersey back to Colorado, and it's like, what's going on there? And I think a lot of people, if you've been sending cards to PSA, there was a while just in the very, very recent present that you would send cards, and it almost was like they received their cards that day. Like by the very next day or the day after, your cards were already at like stage 4. They were like, they've already gone through like the research and development, and they were already engraded. Like it was super fast. And then at that time, it was turnaround times were between like a month and 2 months. That was a really, really beautiful spot. In fact, that was a spot I never thought we would get back to in 2023, but here we were. And then now it seems like we're going to keep adding months onto the PSA turnaround time, and I feel like this is in a way going in the opposite direction that I thought maybe PSA was going to. But listen, there's one man out there. There's one man who I know has the answers to all those questions about PSA, and his name is Nat Turner. And as we stand today, at the time of recording this video, he is still scheduled to be on a live July 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know in my community post I said the week of July 10th. A week is 7 days, so I was off by a few days. It was, July 18th. It's a Tuesday, 2 p.m. I recommend you guys tuning in. And that'll be a question I ask him. I'll be like, Nat, what's going on? Why am I sending cards to California? Why are you taking those cards from California? Why are you now sending them to New Jersey? Why are we not just direct shipping to New Jersey? There'll be other questions like, are the pack grading scales, have they changed? I would like to know. Because I got, what did I have, 137 cards out? Or sorry, not 137 cards. 137 packs currently at PSA for grading through a consignment service. Those 137 packs to be graded is a price tag of greater than $4,000. So I'm hoping the grading scales didn't change too much. Otherwise, I will get what they like to call getting wrecked. That's what will happen to me if all those packs come back 6s and 7s and 8s. But there's only one man that I truly knows has all the answers to that, and that is the president and CEO of PSA. But I'm just excited to talk to Nat Turner, especially when you think about how young he is. Think about what he's done, like, at this point in his life, at his age. It's insane. I mean, so he's, chairman of CEO, or of collectors. And Collectors does not just own PSA. Nat Turner also runs Wada Games and also runs Golden Auctions. Like, these are not small companies. I mean, Wada Games is the definition of the largest video game grader in the world. And what they're doing now with the PSA Vault service they're doing and starting to trickle in. Again, I've talked about this in the past. The same reason I love eBay, because everything eBay is doing right now is like steps ahead, because eBay is building all their infrastructure because of the future. Like the eBay Vault is being built currently right now for the future. It's just in like the beta phase. The same thing as the eBay authenticity guarantee. It's still in like that beta phase because the price for authenticity guarantee is still at $250. Eventually in the future, the eBay Vault minimum submissions will go down. The eBay authenticity guarantee minimums will go down. eBay's building themselves out to be a huge player in the future. That's why you got a guy like Nick, Old School Pokemon. Shout out to Nick. He's doing it right. He's doing the eBay Live. He understands what eBay is doing. And again, even eBay Live is another example of building out the future, because with the eBay Live, right now it's by invite only. If you are just a normal seller on eBay, you cannot just go on your eBay app and instantly start live streaming. It doesn't work like this. Everything eBay is doing is like with the future in mind. And if you look at eBay's total revenue and you look at how much revenue comes from just trading cards, it is astronomical. But with that said, PSA is doing the same thing. Everything PSA is doing right now today is they're doing it to build out for that future. That eBay Vault, even now grading cards in New Jersey too. So now, even though their cards are getting shipped from California to Jersey, which I don't really enjoy that thought, but that is part of PSA building themselves to be a better brand by saying, okay, let's separate offices. Let's have a West Coast branch. Let's have an East Coast branch in Jersey. And then hypothetically, in a perfect world, both those branches are the same size. You can grade the same amount of cards from both. And then by having two different like grading hubs, hopefully turnaround times should decrease that much. And then we're already seeing PSA start to, make these European offices where people could directly submit. You have the Japanese offices where people are able to directly submit. Everything PSA is doing right now, it's in the infancy, a lot of this stuff, which sounds crazy because PSA I think they were founded in 1993. Think about that. So to say what PSA is doing, some of this stuff is in its infancy, might sound crazy to hear about the original OG grading card company that started in 93 for them to be doing stuff in the infancy, but they are. They're just building this infrastructure. They're doing everything right, in my opinion. And in the future, people like talk about $10 grade and stuff and say, I don't think that's ever a possibility. It is very much a possibility. It is very much. I mean, we're already at 15. For it to go from 15 to 10 with two different offices, because at that point, when you go from 15 to 10, your business model, in a way, shifts a little bit because it just becomes the absolute definition of a volume, type business. Volume. You want more and more cards to come in, as many as you can, and just pump them out at that $10. And, I mean, that's kind of already PSA's business model, but Nat Turner has said on other lives, like, he's understanding of what that price means. That $15, that does protect, it's like holding back like a floodgate, right? Like every dollar amount that grading fee drops a little bit, you open up that. So imagine a big floodgate on like a dam. In order to open that floodgate on a dam, you have a big, huge, like circular valve. And every time you spin that valve a little bit, that floodgate's opening just a little bit. And the more you crank on that valve, the more and more that floodgate is open until eventually all that water that's being held back by that dam, or in this analogy, all the cards that are being held back are just going to start pouring out. And Nat Turner knows. The lower that price goes, the more those cards are going to get submitted, and then the more that flood is going to be, the crazier the backlog is going to get. And then in theory, if prices could get low enough, we could see the same exact scenario that rolled out end of 2020 could happen today. And people out there could be like, no, I don't think that could happen. Listen, one of the huge catalysts, it wasn't the only catalyst, but it was a big catalyst of that flood of cards that hit in 2020 was we had $7.50 TCG specials. $7.50. I promise you, from the bottom of my heart, if we saw $7.50 PSA grading costs tomorrow, meaning this video ends, tomorrow they release a $7.50 TCG special, the amount of cards that would just get dumped to PSA overnight would just be a next to make-believe amount of cards. Like, people's heads would spin. But that's just the market we live in today. And I talk about it all the time. One of the things I try to be in this hobby is be fluid. But the same thing PSA is still trying to do is they're trying to be fluid too. Because they understand that we are living in a different world. There was a time when $7.50 a card grading was maybe a possibility. Right now, today, that cannot be a possibility. Not that we don't want it to be a possibility, just cannot. From a business standpoint, CGC just can't drop prices that low. But they have but that's the thing too. Nat, as a CEO, he has probably more or less final say in prices for especially bulk. And imagine he's a man with his finger on the button, and that button could just drop it 15 to 13 to 12. And I think that the biggest danger of the CGC right now, and danger of the people submitting the CGC right now, is you do run this risk. And the risk you run is you submit a ton of cards at $12 because you're not a member, and you think you're saving yourself $3 a card. And in a month from now or 2 months from now, CGC also drops down to $12 or drops down to $13. And then people probably end up kicking themselves for that. That's what I believe. I do not believe in CGC anymore. They're done. They're hanging on. And I do believe in the short term, though, we'll see an influx of those cards. And the sad part is we're going to see a lot of people hype up CGC because they're going to be so vested in CGC that they're going to be blinded by how vested they are. And they're going to want nothing more than for CGC to succeed. And maybe they'll want to see like PSA feel. They'll want to see Beckett feel. Listen, I talked about this in my last live. Let me phrase this correctly. It's not that I never thought I would submit to Beckett, but I never thought that I would be so enticed to submit to Beckett, which I am right now. And that's just going black label hunting on super, super modern promos. Like, I mean, we are talking, it doesn't get much bulkier for modern promos when you start talking about, so you get a pile like this, and it's like, okay, how many of these need to hit black labels? And it's like, probably not a lot of them. Only a couple of them at, $200+ in a black label versus this same card in a PSA is what? 30 to 40? Like, the premiums right now are absolutely, they're just so far away. But I do believe that even that Beckett Black Label premium is eventually going to come to an end, but it's just a matter of, a lot of people are stubborn. I'm stubborn. I'll admit it. I'm stubborn when it comes to my ways. And one of the things I found out by making this channel, one of the things I found out, the hard way is when I was talking to the camera and saying to people out there, if you guys have never graded cards in your entire life, I recommend you grading cards at least once, or submit your own submission at least once. And, I always thought, okay, you make it down the rabbit hole this long, you're listening to hour-long plus podcasts, and you're deep down. But I was shocked at how many people have never graded their own cards. But, man, there's a lot of people out there who just 6 months ago had never graded a card, but now, fast forward 6 months later, I'm talking to some of these guys, and they're like, I got 3 submissions out to PSA now. I've already got my other submissions back. I've been selling. People have been sending me, like, examples of the sales they're doing on their eBay accounts. Like, there are people that are just growing, like, month after month after month, and it's crazy to watch this. And all those people or not all those people, but some of those people had never graded cards before 6 months ago. The amount of just craziness that happens once you get that first submission out, it almost in a way goes parabolic. But that's the thing. It was so hard for them to just send their first submission to PSA. Now it's like, do I want to now spread my wings a little bit and now send another submission to Beckett? But like one of the beautiful things CGC had going for, and probably one of the best things CGC had going for, was during the lockdown, there were people that wanted to do their first ever submissions. And their first ever submissions were to CGC, which for some people out there, to hear those words that somebody's first ever graded submission was to CGC might sound crazy, but in reality, that is probably true for a lot of people because because PSA was more or less shut down and there were no other options. That CGC became their only option. And I'll tell you right now, when you send cards to a company for the first time, you're gonna instantly like be more comfortable with that company because it's like riding a bike without training wheels. You know, you're going to be real shaky at first. You learn the system, you learn the slabs, you learn all those little nuances. And because there were a couple people whose first ever experience was with CGC, that was a great business tactic for CGC because a lot of those people will stick around. But I mean, you run your company poor enough, you run it to the ground, like eventually people, even your most call them most diehard of fans, the people that only ever graded with CGC and never sent a submission to Becca and never sent a submission to PSA. You screw over those people enough times, you just keep knocking them down. It's like, imagine it's like that person's on the ground. There's that little kid from The Simpsons meme. It's like, please stop. He's already dead. And instead, CGC just keeps nailing him. He's like, here's an 8.5, 8.5, 8.5. That's the world we live in. But, okay. See, all right. As always, I said this is going to be a lot of Q&A. I ranted. I did my little rant. The news was CGC's price turnaround time. So I took my chance. Really kick CGC while they're down because they've already kicked us while we were down. So now I'm going to go check in on the chat. If you guys got any questions, now's your time to answer. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes answering questions. Try to keep this at a shorter live. So shorter live could be 45 minutes, but I say that, we'll see what happens. But so we got Poke Snipes, we got Rattle Pokemon. So I think Rattle might get mad at me, but I think it's now been officially announced that Rattle's going to be at Charlotte Collectacon. So if you guys have never met Rattle, you're going to have your chance in Charlotte. And I'm telling everybody out there, if you go the one Collectacon this year, you still got time. Middle of September. This is going to be the Collectacon you're going to want to go at. And trust me, I understand there's a lot of people out there have never or probably aren't vending. They're looking at flights, they're looking at hotels. It could get pricey. But if you have the ability, if you have the disposable income and you could, treat yourself to something, I do believe that this will be the event you want to go to. There's going to be a lot of big names here that people know, especially when I say a lot of names people know, or maybe not big names, but names people know because of this community right there. There'll be a lot of the people that are in this chat, a lot of people that make this sort of content are all going to be there. And I think it's going to be the go-to event this year. But, Charlotte's going to be fun. And I'll be vending. So I won't be able to if you guys are come up to me, I won't be able to, have in-depth conversations with you at the table or anything. But listen, every night there's trade nights at either in the hotel lobby or usually there's, a designated trade night place. We'll be around. It's not a secret. The trade night is not a Collectacon secret. Everyone knows where the trade night is. You just go there. You could interact with people. And I'm telling you, if you do want to interact, do not be afraid to walk up to anybody. Nobody's going to shun you. Nobody's going to be mean to you. Everybody's super opening. Everybody's super welcoming. So if you're down at that, introduce yourself during the event when people are vending at tables or stuff and people are walking around. But I said, like I said, people just won't have enough time to talk to you. Don't take that offensively. And then later at that night at the trade events, just introduce, walk up. And, a lot of times people are getting together and they're going out to dinner and stuff and they're getting big tables and stuff. And this community is very accepting. If you go to Charlotte, this is the year you want to go. See, I should get, and I'm not even sponsored by Collectacon. What am I doing wrong? Collectacon, if you're out there, come on, hook a brother up. I mean, I'm shilling Collectacon for you. I'm not even getting paid to do it. Yeah. But Pokemon Collector, see ya. Mr. Pumblechuck, he said, ready for an epic PK rant. I think I was a little tame today with the PK rant. I went pretty easy on CGC. I see we got Typhlosion Collector. Typhlosion Collector, his name is as true of a name as you can get. My man Typhlosion Collector is really, really going after every single Typhlosion card, and not only every Typhlosion card, but every single Typhlosion collector. He's really living up to his name, and I give him a lot of respect for that. Pokesnipes, FOMO-tables? Oh, FOMO-tables. Instead of like Lunchables, FOMO. I like that. We got Fitz in the chat. We got number one mod in the game, as always, Drew in the chat. Do me a favor, guys, if you're watching this, we got 102 people watching this. Let's get 102. Everybody drop a number one in the chat. Show Drew we care about him. But, let's see. Giovanni's Pikachu said Old Yeller style, yeah. Leaf Green Goblin, good to see you, man. Mr. Walrus. Ooh, I always love a good... I love Mr. Walrus in the chat. He always has the hot takes. But Mr. Walrus said, hot take, the illustrator is mids. It's a trainer and not even a waifu. I like it. We need Mr. Walrus to start creating his own YouTube content. I think that would be a lot of fun. Tom B said, number one mod, what's up, Drew? Thanks for the tip with Discord notifications. I'm guessing people have been asking, like, when I go live. But, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not good at, like, planning out lives. But speaking of planning out lives, we do have a live that's planned for tomorrow night. If you guys are not familiar with what the PokeFlips podcast is, which I'm sure 90% of you guys, 99% of you guys out there are familiar with PokeFlips, but it's co-hosted by Dan Catchmore Collectibles, Nick Old School Pokemon, two people I talk about on this channel all the time, two people I consider really good friends in this hobby, but they co-host a podcast, and I will be joining them tomorrow night. It'll be the first time I've ever joined the PokeFlips podcast, and that's at 8:30 p.m. this Thursday, July 13th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, definitely recommend you guys hopping in there. And their format's a lot different than mine, where mine is more or less just ranting about a topic at the beginning of the video and then starting to go towards a chat. The way the PokeFlips podcast is they just answer questions from the chat the entire live stream. So if you guys do have questions and you do want them answered, like, that is a great resource for a lot of people out there. And it's really cool what they're doing too. I think they're moving into, God, I want to say they're in like 2 years into that podcast. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. Yeah, so Guy from a Crowd said, everyone will just know that the new 10s or old 9.5s. I think that's what's going to happen. The people I feel so bad for is old 9s stay 9s, old 9.5s go to 10s, but they still keep a 9.5s. And for that poor person out there who, under the new grading scale, sends a bunch of cards to PSA, or not PSA, sends a bunch of cards to CGC, and they're hit with a bunch of their new standard 9.5s. Like, I feel so bad for whoever that person is. I hope that CGC is at least smart enough to recognize that even though they still created a new 9.5 grade, that they cannot give that out. You cannot do that to people. That is like that is dirty. That is worse than 8.5 dirty to people. But who knows? It'll be like, oh, CGC still doesn't give out 10s. They just give out 9.5s. A 9.5 that never existed before, like, the most recent change. I hope that doesn't happen. Felipe de Sosa said, hey, PK in chat. Topic is, leaked chars are enough to carry Obsidian Flames. I'm still on the fence about that Charizard. I want to like it. Everybody seems to really, really like that Charizard. If you guys want to watch a great video talking about, like, all the leaks for that Charizard and all the people that like it, Opossum Bud made a great video just talking about that Charizard, how his Instagram account was just filled with that Charizard. Every single person and their mother was posting it. Everybody loves it. I don't dislike it, but I don't know how much I truly, truly love that card yet, because it's way too early. But I don't know. I think that artwork is pretty, like, mid right now. Let's see. We got Jumble Fitz making up cards in the chat again. uh, so LLL, that's a good name, said, Yo PK live, finally caught one. Yeah, man, I'm glad to see you in the live. Mr. Waller says, what? People don't want CGC 10s? We don't represent the majority. $9.60 and 2 weeks turnaround times are attractive. They are attractive if you. This is the thing. I think the only reason $9.60 is attractive and 2 weeks turnaround time is attractive is because people think that they're going to get those cards back faster and they're going to be able to sell them quicker, which makes sense, right? But the problem is I just don't know if by getting cards back faster and selling them faster, if the amount of money that those cards are actually going to sell for are even going to be worth it, opposed to just sending it to PSA, waiting the couple months, and then selling the cards. And like I said, maybe that works with like, super, super new releases, but anything that is not new. So just say, like an example would be anything Scarlet and Violet and newer, meaning all those cards have been on the market for a while and the market has pretty much seen a bunch of these cards graded. If you wanted them graded, you could have sent them to PSA, you would have had your returns back. Anything Scarlet and Violet and older have already been graded, so they're not good plays to send the CGC because you're not doing that first to market play anymore. So really, to do that first to market play, you're only going to be living in the most absolute now, like now. And maybe that works, but the problem is you have a lot of people who could be doing that CGC play. And if it is 2 weeks, like the amount of competitions that right at release for a lot of these cards can be so strong that even like first to release CGC cards might still sell for less of a premium versus the PSA ones that take 3 months to come out. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, we're going to find out. And trust me, if I'm wrong, I'll let you guys know I'm wrong. I say we got to give it like at least like 6 months timeline, really see this play out, get a couple sets to be released, a couple different products. I think, now we're seeing Obsidian Flames come out. Come September, we're going to see 151. I'd probably say like a month or two after 151 is released, we'll really see how this play works out. Is it a good play? And the problem is too, is if it is a good play, everybody will eventually start to do it. And even if it's that good of a play, maybe even I will start to do it. I just don't see that happening. And there's a lot of people out there right now kind of being that canary in the coal mine for me. So I'm going to let those people be that canary in the coal mine. And I'm just going to be, I'll be waiting back. I'll be watching it. But the whole premise of a canary in the coal mine is if that canary doesn't die from those gases down in that hole, well, guess what? It's okay for you to go down there. And if that canary stays fine, I'll go down there too. It just works that easy. We got Andy on Guam. Guam, always appreciate Guam, but he's got a lot of the Halloween memes in the chat. FOMO Table says, when did CGC start taking bulk? I mean, when did they not take bulk? I think would be the easier question. They've always taken bulk. So we got Fitz, a lot of the hot dogs in the chat. Fitz, I still got your jumbo card. I really got to send it out to you because I tried sending it to you once, Fitz, and then it got pushed back to me because of the wrong address, because you gave me the wrong address. But I will get it back out to you. Good to see you, Coleman. Fresh Taz, good to see you. Joe, good to see you. Joe says he loves CGC. OG Max 7 said, did first submission last week for Pokemon only set Japanese Erica's Hospitality. So I'm curious about how those plays will work out for you. See, we got Mr. Pokemon Classics in the chat. Good to see you, Matt. I hope Matt can make it to Collectacon Charlotte. He's one of those people I definitely like to see. When I was at Denver Collectacon again, to see Pokemon Classics in person was one of the highlights for the trip for me. So PokeSnipe says, there's a local grading company near me, and you see a lot of those slabs on Marketplace just because it's local and cheap. I think people will still grade with CGC, but hardcore collectors won't. We'll see. I mean, like CGC with $9 grading, like a lot of these whatnot sellers who are still able to get a premium for any card as long as it's, slab between two pieces of plastic, like CGC will see a lot of selling for a lot of just a whatnot, but there was a lot of grading card companies like Diamond Grading Service, GMA. I'm not maybe not Ace Grading, but like a lot of these smaller grading, AGS, smaller companies, faster turnaround times. There was a lot of those slabs being sold on whatnot because of that one simple fact. One, it costs less. It was cheaper to grade with them and faster turnaround times. There will always be a buyer pool for those. Now, the people buying slabs on whatnot, paying absolutely crazy premiums, I hope that they're not the same people watching these videos. I hope they're not the same people interacting with these chats. So, but I mean, we've seen it. Like, I know enough whatnot sellers at this point. There's people out there buying anything, and I don't. You think that buyer pool it's not possible. It can be that deep, but it is. And I think sometimes we just take for granted like how deep we are into this actual Pokemon market versus a lot of other people, which are just willy nilly buying whatever slab is some whatnot person is just shilling to them on whatever day. Snick Poo said CGC could have just changed their label and their prices and their grading process, and if they stopped there, they would have been fine. It's dumb to take all old 9.5s and turn them into 10s. Yeah, I think they did a lot of things at once. And yeah, Snick put it a good way. Like, think how many things they just did all at once. Lower prices, change labels, upgrade 9.5s to 10s, create a new 9.5 that never existed, you know, start taking in these 9.5s, cracking these 9.5s, regrade or reslabbing them as 10s. And there will be some cards that get damaged in that crossover. And it'll be interesting to see like what happens when CGC starts damaging cards. I mean, their insurance policy, I'm sure, covers that, but there might be a lot of big insurance payments. And one of the things I'm going to write this down to ask Nat Turner is, I'm going to ask Nat Turner, like, because one of the things about PSA and one of the things that they say, the reason why they do these upcharges is because, they're insuring all these cards. So if they're handling your cards and they damage your cards, PSA will pay you out for those cards. I know Rattle Pokemon's probably out there going, yeah, PK, but it's not easy to get your money. No, but no insurance, working with any insurance policy is never easy to get your money, of course. But like, that's one of the reasons that PSA has given in the past for these higher, like, upcharges and stuff. So we'll see. But yeah, I'll ask Nat Turner. I'll be like, how many cards do you guys damage like a month or a year? And I'm sure that amount that they damage doing reholdering services is not zero. And if anybody knows, because there's one person who's going to be writing the checks when those mistakes happen, it's going to be Nat Turner. But I'd be interested to hear that. And then I would be interested to also get his thought, like, okay, now what if you were in, maybe I won't ask, I'm probably not going to ask him about CGC really, but I'd be interested to say like, okay, with your knowledge of how many cards get damaged in the crossover process, how many cards do you think CGC are damaging? And the number is probably like insane. I mean, even I've damaged cards, like cracking them open, like luckily not too bad or like to the point, but it's not a simple, like perfect process. And when I'm doing it, I'm spending my time. Like, I'm taking a slab, I cut extra corners, I get my screwdriver, I pry it real carefully. Like, I take my time. I'm not doing it in, like, the most absolute mass assembly line type thing that CGC is going to have to do. If you get people sending in 200 cards for reholdering, feel bad for that guy because they're paying $1,000 in reholdering fees. But, like, $200 or 200 cards from one person, like, you got one person that have to crack 200 slabs, and they're probably going to get thousands of slabs to crack. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, whoever's cracking these slabs are going to probably be the best slab cracker in the world, because at that point, when they're all said and done and that last 9.5 gets cracked over to be crossed over into a 10, whoever those people are that are cracking those slabs will have way more experience than every single person in this hobby combined. So I mean, the amount of CGC 9.5s that have already been cracked is insane. Let's see. Womb Raider says, I like how Nat replies to people from its Instagram. He sorted an issue out for me after he missed the label 10 cards. Oh, that's cool that he sorted it out for you. It's pretty crazy that you can go to the CEO of a huge grading card. I mean, collectors. I think collectors bought PSA. I think the price tag they put on it was 784 million. Don't quote me on that exact number, but I know it was like between 700 million and 800 million was the cost to acquire PSA. For somebody to be the CEO of a company that acquired another company for like $784 million and he's answering your messages is pretty insane. And it also shows you, like, you know, how much they truly do care about their clientele, that you could, in a way, reach out to the CEO and have them sort an issue as small as 10 mislabeled cards. Like, for you, 10 mislabeled cards is a huge, huge problem because it affects you directly. But on the overall scale of this hobby, it's like, whatever. But, I mean, it's awesome that he does that. And I got a ton of respect for the guy already. And the fact that he's willing to come on my channel, even more respect for him. And I'm going to treat him with the utmost respect, too. And I think a lot of people want me to get, like, super spicy, but I'm not. Like, anybody that donates to me their time, and his time is as valuable as it gets, I'm going to always be super respectful and just always, like, have the utmost respect for somebody that does that. And I have the utmost respect for even, the biggest YouTube channel or the smallest YouTube channel, or the biggest collector or the smallest collector. Anybody that comes on my channel and donates to me their most valuable resource, again, which is time, like, I'm always going to be super grateful for all those people. And the same thing goes for Nat. Let's see. Let's see. I swear that chat used to be. Let's see. Let's see. Mile High Pokemon said, CGC is trying to compete. I know that flipping policies is not great, but they're planning for the long term. But this, of course, makes them far more competitive versus PSA. In the near term, maybe. But in the long term, does it really make them more competitive? I don't know. And listen, I'm in that belief that people will look at these new 10s and not value them very strong, because they will have in the back of their head some place that these weren't really 10s. They were all 9.5s at one point. And people are going to start to look at certain numbers, because the certain numbers of these cards won't change. And people will quickly be able to identify, like, oh, that 9 is a, cert number 3.8. That's actually a strong 9.5. That one deserves to be a 10. Then they're going to look at cert numbers and go, wait a second. That cert number starts with 4.0 or 3.9. Those are weak 9.5s. People will start to identify that the same way somebody looks at a PSA slab and they go, oh, that's a 2 cert, that's a weak slab. Oh, that's a 0 cert, that's a weak slab. The same way people do that, the same way people will look at these new CGC slabs and go 3.8, that's a strong 10. Oh, 4.0 or higher, that's a weak 10. I just feel people will do that. But again, we might be getting too deep down the rabbit hole. Maybe people don't actually care about that. Mile High Pokemon says he prefers they try to compete well against PSA than just keep old grading / prices just for the sake of being consistent. Yeah, I mean, I would like them to keep the old grading consistent, but the pricing, they're doing the right thing for pricing. What they did with grading, I don't love. PokeRunt said PK never believed in CGC. I wish that was true. If Chevals is out there, Chevals will tell you. He's one of my mods in my chat. He's been around for as long as it gets. I made videos on my channel telling people to submit to CGC. The same way as I made videos telling people to submit to PSA, I made videos telling people to submit to CGC. And I regret those videos. And for all the people out there who took my advice and did that and got slammed with 8.5s because it was really early on, for all those people out there, I am sorry. But Chevals is one of them. So for PokeRunt that said PK never believed in CGC, I wish that was true. But it's far from the truth. The truth is I made videos telling people to grade with CGC. And Cheval's is an example. He took my advice and graded with CGC and got absolutely decimated the same way a lot of other people did. So, Mr. Walrus said, talking only about CGC negative scenarios without the positives, because I don't think there are many positives. I think I did talk about some of the positives. That was the whole canary in the coal mine part of it, no? Where I said, if everything does work out, I'm going to use people as canary in the coal mine, and even I will potentially use CGC if the canary in the coal mine doesn't die from those toxic fumes. So I do think I did say some of the positive scenarios, which that is a possibility. I wouldn't go that far, Mr. Walrus. It's funny, like, how flip-floppy people are. Now people are warming up to the new label. Let's see. PokeRun said, wow, the horror, yeah. I mean, I do a lot of like channel highlights. I might have to, I don't even want it to exist out there, but I might have to make a highlight of all the times I talked nothing but positive things about CGC and talked about how I thought CGC was going to lead the way and like be this huge competitor to the PSA and all these things. And oh my God, those videos age extremely poorly. But I think I've really tried to redeem myself from those videos when I told people the grade was CGC. Ugh. PSA is the way. Grade with PSA. So Mr. Waller said, PK, getting crushed by CGC is something I understand all too well. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Walrus, if you got crushed by CGC as well, man, that sucks. So Jake from Pallet Town said, new CGC label equals new Charizard as far as appeal. I don't know if I like the new Charizard. I feel like I should like the new Charizard more than I actually do because everyone else is loving it, but I'm on the fence about it. I don't know. It looks okay. This is bad. Like, you tell people out there that you don't like a modern card, they're gonna freaking crucify you for it. But I don't love the new Charizard. Sorry. Maybe it will grow on me. There's been cards out there in the history of this hobby that have definitely grown on me. Pretty much any new generation starter. Every single new generation starter has eventually grown on me. At almost no point have new generation, like, final evolution starters really hit, like, right at the beginning. And the only one that, like, maybe for Sword and Shield, like, an Inteleon, maybe a little bit. For, like, I kind of liked Inteleon cards, but Rillaboom cards, man, hated Rillaboom cards. Like, just, I was like, I don't like this. I liked Sobble, though. Or not Sobble, Grookey, sorry. So I like Grookey, but I hated Rillaboom. And eventually, given enough time, Rillaboom's eventually, like, grew on me a little bit. And same way as a lot of, like, other gen starters have eventually grown on me. Like, even all the way back to, like, Black and White, like, I don't know. Tepic is fun, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's too much of a rant I'll go to. But, yeah, guys. As always, appreciate every single one of you. I said I was going to go for 45 minutes. I made it 53 minutes. I feel like for my channel, 53 minutes is a short live, but for most people, 53 minutes is like a long-ass video. But whatever. As always, appreciate every single one of you guys. I don't ever ask for much. The only thing I ever ask for is do me 2 favors. 1, hit that like button. Really helps for the YouTube algorithm, pumps out this video, and maybe people out there who never seen this channel will find this channel. And number 2, if you are new to this channel and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I do a lot of these type of lives, do a lot of different type of podcasts, type interviews and stuff like this. You'll probably enjoy. But as always, appreciate every single one of you, and I'll catch you on the next video.